It's not the healthiest. I'm not saying it's the healthiest thing, but labor is traumatic. I walked in, I was like, ew. Ew. Okay. I'm Dr. Kinuthia, obstetrician and gynecologist, digital entrepreneur now, mostly because I do content creation as well as digital marketing to some extent. I'm also a producer and a host of a podcast, Circling the Rabbit Hole podcast. And then I think online, most people will know me for advocacy work around SRHR and mental health. Oh gosh, I'm horribly introverted and most people wouldn't believe it. I feel like if people see you on camera, they assume that you have this flamboyant personality. No, I'm almost always home with my cats. I'm literally cat lady. That's a good question. Yes, mostly because my parents are both in medicine and they made it look easy. So I feel like the con that was played when I was young, it was very successful. And that's how I ended up where I am. But then I also had a lot of influence from, at that time, TV shows like ER and Scrubs. That's what was big on TV. And just the drama around medicine was so intriguing. I wish that's how it was in real life, because it's not. We're not just hiding in the call rooms being naughty. No, sadly not. But those were the primary influences for me, family as well as what I was seeing socially, which was mostly TV at the time. Otherwise, I think it's more just also personality-wise, because I'm an empath. I want to look after people. I'm a carer and a caregiver. So then medicine just became pretty natural for me, yeah. Unlike popular belief, doctors don't just talk medicine, and especially not when we are together. It's weird. We have typical family conversations. Just like with any other family, parents never feel like you're doing enough or that you've achieved. They're constantly just pushing you to, excel even more. So around our table, we talk about, I'd say that there's a lot of mentorship, first of all, because more than anyone else, they understand what medicine truly is like over the years and the way the environment has changed over time. So we get a lot of mentorship, but then at the same time, we also have a shoulder to lean on, someone you can talk to who will be able to understand what you've been through. When you've had a big loss or a big win, someone you can celebrate with and they actually get it, like as opposed to people who are not in the same field. And then lots of fun and typical family, gossip sessions, catch-up sessions, just celebrating each other's milestones. So it's a bit of a mix. But when it actually shit hits the fan, they're the people who have my back 24/7. Yeah. Even when they don't get it, because they don't get this creative side. They still support 100%. Yeah. In med school, my first loss informed my passion, because working, and this any doctor who's trained in Kenya will tell you, working in public healthcare is soul crushing. Let me go with soul crushing, because systems will fail you and they'll fail the patient. And then recovering from that kind of a loss, where I met someone who was really sick, needed medical attention as soon as possible, but we couldn't get theatre for several days to be able to have the surgery he needed. And by the time we were ready to take him in, as I was going to give my morning round, and then he had his theatre scheduled maybe an hour or two later, he passed away during the round. We resuscitated during the round. And it was the most heartbreaking, how you hear about trauma. But instead of putting me off, because I was a third-year med student at that time, and that's the first time you're in clinical practice. So you're translating all your theory from the books and all the hard work you've done dissecting cadavers and all of that into practice that saves lives. That transition and having that event right at the beginning of it was the game changer for me, because I said to myself, as long as I have the power, never again. So then I became my patient's biggest advocate. And I think anyone who says they've been my patient or are my patient now can attest to that. Like, I fight for you and with you until the very end. We're not going to have delays that are preventable that's going to change your outcomes. So it sort of turned me into a fighter. And then women's health, reproductive, sexual health. When I first went into labor ward, 4th year of med school, Kenyatta National Hospital, labor ward is traumatic. I walked in, I was like, ew. Ew. There's nothing romantic or pretty or cute about the birth process. And so when I first watched what was going on, and especially in those numbers and how crazy the labor ward tends to get, I walked away and I was like, who on earth decides to specialize in this field? Why? Why would you do that to yourself? So then I thought, okay, dermatology or something cutesy where I have a 9 to 5, 10 to 5 work, decent hours. And I thought that's the field I'd go towards. And then internship. Internship was, again, where my mind was changed. And I sort of then became really passionate about women's health because it's the very first time I delivered a baby on my own. Like, yes, you're under supervision, but again, because it's government facilities, we're understaffed, under-equipped. The first time I had to birth someone, like deliver a baby on my own, was the most rewarding. The adrenaline, the endorphins, the excitement, the transition from pain to joy, because it's a quick transition for the mom. That was, and I was like, yep, this is home from that day on. And then working more, because there's obstetrics and gynecology. Obstetrics is pregnancy, childbirth, aftercare, after postpartum care and all that. And then gynecology is just reproductive health outside of pregnancy. So for pregnancy and obstetrics, that was the cementing moment. For gynecology, it was the fact that we don't do enough research for women's health, and a lot of women suffer or die because of gaps in the system and lack of knowledge. So that's what sort of turned me into a champion. I'm like, no. We need people from the inside who will help educate, inform, and fight for women's rights. So that's how that decision was made. Yeah. It's constant navigation because each situation will be unique in its own way. Patient-doctor confidentiality extends, it's a relationship between the doctor and the person in front of them. It doesn't extend to family members, it doesn't extend to partners, it doesn't extend to anyone else. Quite literally, even when you're underage, there's a level where we still have to maintain your privacy. And a lot of it is, the best way to navigate it is consent, like encourage your patient to consent for information to be shared. Encourage them to have their partner in the sessions, then we can have a conversation together. And even then, when it comes now down to testing, like STIs, we still need consent to test together as opposed to individually and give you separate results. It's just encouraging people to start to normalize information sharing. If you come in solo and we diagnose something that we need to do a bit of contact tracing, that's what we call it, where you have an STI and you've come in by yourself, I would need to encourage you to inform any partners that you may have had so that they can also get tested. But again, it still falls under the purview of the patient. The patient is the one who will be able to say, I want to do it or I don't, or allow us to do it anonymously, where we reach out to your potential. So you give us contacts, and then without disclosing who or what or where, we encourage you to come in and get tested and treated. That tends to work pretty well. I feel like over the years, people have destigmatized sexual health quite a bit, so we don't struggle as much anymore. But even then, there's still not yet enough information out there. So you'll find people are misinformed, and especially in a country where you can get drugs over the counter. You Google, you self-diagnose, and then you treat. By the time you come in, things are so complicated, and you actually have resistance. It becomes a bit of a mess. You can remember the super gonorrhea drama we had recently, where you literally have a bacteria that doesn't respond to anything. And so now it becomes a chronic illness, so we treat you for the rest of your life. So things like that, is why we're passionate about information sharing and educating people, just so that you're not coming from a place of shame and fear, because that's usually what is driving poor decision making and making you feel we're human. You'll catch something or the other. Even if it's, when you get a flu from someone, we don't shame you for it. If you have food poisoning from an established, we don't shame you for it, but not an STI, surely. We're going to shame you. Come in and get treated. Let's treat partners and then keep you moving. Stay healthy. So med school is a truly humbling experience because you're taking A students and putting them together in a class like it's the cream of the crop across from the different parts of the country, putting us in one pot and then showing us we know nothing from day one. So I remember my first CAT, okay, for context, the pass mark in med school is 50%. And for us, because I hear it doesn't happen anymore, but for us, we had negative marking. So in a MCQ, multiple choice paper, you had 5 choices and you had to give a true or false for each. For every right answer, you get a +1. For every wrong answer, you get -0.5. So by the end of the paper, you can have negative. So med school is humbling, because I remember my first CAT, we've had discussion group, I'm feeling, oh my God, I got 13%. 13%. Someone who's come from primary school, high school, where 70% was like easy. Now 13%, I'm like, what? Huh? So it's, yeah. But then the thing that did, especially when, again, you're dealing with type A's and we are like go-getters, the thing that stimulates is, oh hell no. Absolutely not. And so now it kind of drives you to, I have to hit that 50. And then you get through to the clinical years, and now half the exams are clinical exams, so patient-based rounds where you'll meet a patient, you take their history, you're supposed to come up with a list of differential diagnosis and then treatment options, but you don't know their actual history in real life. So you're being tested on, like, literally what will happen as you become a doctor. And there you're being graded by your colleagues, and our professors were notorious for being horrible. They're so mean during those exams. So even just speaking confidently, just learning to be confident in the knowledge that you have, again, it's a trial and error. So you reach a point where you just beg, you're like, please, I hope I just got 50, but like, please, Lord, just give me 51. That's all I want, tafadhali, because 49 is a fail and you will repeat the year. Like, it's quite grueling work, but I think initially it triggers an ego kind of response where you're like, oh no, oh no, never again, not me, someone else. And so you stop sleeping and you read non-stop. It's not the healthiest. I'm not saying it's the healthiest thing, but that's what happened. So Circling the Rabbit Hole, I describe it as a holistic edutaining podcast. And the primary focus is sexual reproductive health and rights and mental health. Those are the typical episodes will be centered around one of those areas. And mostly it's informed. So first of all, people ask me about the name. I know most people know what going down a rabbit hole means. Like, literally, what happens every time you Google something? You Google, and then 3 hours later, you come out of that space and you're like, yo, how did I get there? But for Circling the Rabbit Hole, I came up with the name because I was like, we're refusing to go into the topics. We're so covered in shame and stigma around sexual health, reproductive health, mental health issues. So let me lead you to let's circle the rabbit hole a bit. Let me start the conversation. And then hopefully, because there's an episode you can watch, you can then have a conversation with the people around you about that topic. Or it can be like a gateway to allow for conversations to happen. And that's kind of why I started. But the main thing that informed the podcast was conversations I was having on a day-to-day with my patients. And regardless of age, like I'd see a 20-something-year-old, I'd see a 50-something-year-old, I'd look after someone in their teens. The basics of the conversations we were having, regardless of what the medical condition was about, was that you don't understand the basics about your body, about your reproductive health. Most women don't understand their menstrual cycle. And if we don't understand it, imagine now our partners. They're just like, sorry, what? So based off of that, I was like, no, there's a huge gap here. We don't understand what normal is. We don't understand what that pain is not normal. We don't understand. No, not that we don't understand. We're ashamed about looking or touching our body parts. So there are women who just, in fact, when I say the words, have you ever, is there something different? Like, what's different? Have you looked? Is it a sore? Is it a pimple? And then like, but that's why I've come, so that you can have a look. Why am I looking? Why am I the one looking? So that's your job. I'm like, but it's your body. It's attached to you. You live in this vessel. You should know everything about every part. So it's more about debunking, demystifying, providing a space where you know you can get accurate information, and then sort of also trying to create content around topics where if you Google the topic, instead of ending up with a scary cancer diagnosis every time, you actually find someone is already talking about it and you can get a bit of information from that episode. The biggest win so far has been feedback from like audience members who have then reached out and said, thank you so much for that conversation you had, because I was able to watch this episode with my daughter and it helped us start having conversations around her menstrual health, her sexual health. Or I was able to show this episode to my mom and it's the thing that got us talking. And I'm like, that's the win. That's it for me. That's, yes, goal achieved. So that's what the podcast is about. We were doing it weekly. Now I'm doing it every 2 weeks, just because, again, I want to have more engagement on social media as well, so that I can offer a bit more value per episode. So I'm stretching it out a little bit. But the conversations that are coming, we're getting less shy. Because you dip your toe first. You start with season 1 calmly. Let them dip their toe, just kidogo. Now we're just diving into pretty tough conversations, tough topics. I love my guests so far for being brave to even have these conversations with me. There'll be no spoilers today, but just find us on your favorite audio streaming platform or on YouTube and enjoy the content. I don't find the time, you make the time. I like that question because younger colleagues, junior colleagues ask me that all the time. They're like, you seem to have 48 hours in a day and then 9 hours in a week. What's that about? I'm like, no, assign time. I assign time because you have to decide what sacrifices you're willing to make in order to make the goal achievable, the dream come true. And for me, the sacrifice has been that I'm not available to my patients every single day. I have specific clinic days, I have a theater day, and then I have days where I'm creating. So the first decision I made for myself was I don't work weekends unless you're in hospital. If you're admitted, I'll see you in the hospital. But clinic, no. I'll stay in clinic till 10 p.m. on a Friday for you, but I'm not coming in on Saturday. So that's the first. You sort of have to make decisions around what you want to achieve. And so I have an assigned day for my shoots. I have assigned days for theater time. I have assigned days for clinic. And just being really conscientious with time management is one of the key ways to make it all work. And then also prioritizing rest, because so again, I'm also learning a lot because I got into digital content creating, digital marketing space accidentally, as tends to be the case if you're doing something else and then you realize, oh, I can use social media to promote what I'm doing. And then other brands reach out and you're like, oh, okay, you can actually, can be a side hustle in the process. Along the way, I've picked up a lot of tips and tricks from actual creatives. I still don't consider myself a creative fully. I'm like a baby creative. Actual creatives who, this is their passion, this is their everyday job, this is their life. And the thing I've learned from them is discipline and attention to detail. If you can run because I look at it now as a business, if you can run it as a business as opposed to, or as a brand as opposed to a passion, hobby, project, you will have a bit more, you'll be clearer on your goals, and you'll have a bit more direction, and you'll be better with your time management. Like now with brands, so branding is one of the things I've learned from them, where I have the podcast as a brand on its own, and then I have my presence online, Dr. Claire, as a brand. And I've had to start looking at myself as a brand, it's just me. So then there are things that I'm known for on my page or my pages on the different platforms, and that will be health-related content. I guess also style. I've been working with the likes of Babu and Mandy a lot, so they've turned me into a bit of a style guru. So I get a lot of audience thanks based on that. And then there's the luxury travel lifestyle type of content. And then for the smallest percentage, but the ones who have the most love from me, is cat content. Which I'm still a bit shy about, so it's only in the stories, but then we'll start to represent more. So that kind of switch in my head from this is just something I do to promote what I'm primarily focused on, to looking at this more like a brand, is what has informed how I manage my time, how I make decisions for the different styling of content that I'll be creating, or the episodes that will come up on the podcast. And then the accidental benefit or result from that is then patients know that if they're stranded, if they're stuck, they can come and actually see me in clinic for a medical issue. Yeah. For the longest time, like I said initially, there was a lot of shame, and it was not like personal shame, but like systemized shame around admitting that you're struggling, or that something affected you, or that you have emotions around something that's happened with work. But now I can say we've come a long way, and it unfortunately takes a lot of injury and damage along the way for us to change and learn. And we had a phase where we had a lot of physician suicide, and losing colleagues because of stress, or not knowing or not even knowing they can talk to someone. A lot of managing your struggle using substances was something that we were seeing a lot, where then you'd have physicians or medical care workers, because it's not just doctors, who are addicted to one thing or another, substances. So we didn't have healthy systems. But at least now I can say, yes, we have a lot more acknowledgement and acceptance that we are human and you need support. So the primary thing is we talk to each other. You will talk to someone who mentors you, or someone you work with, or senior colleagues who've gone through the same thing. And that helps a lot on a day-to-day basis. But you'll also find we have normalized therapy for physicians. And lots of hospitals have also taken the initiative themselves to create a department for doctors to be able, or healthcare workers to be able to go and talk to a counselor or a psychologist and be able to debrief, especially immediately after a traumatic event in the hospital. And we've come a long way. That one I'll say for sure. For med students, my advice is usually very simple. Prioritize your studies. It's for a season, it's for a period of time. It makes or breaks your long-term ability to practice, because there's just so much to learn. The human body is intense, and when it comes down to it, it's a human life that's at stake. So especially now, I feel like if I was in med school now, I'd be the most confused person, because you now have social media showing you how your age mates are having so much fun out there. It's party, or travel, or, everything. And unfortunately, it puts unnecessary pressure on you. But I would say the key things in med school to prioritize is your studies and your close relationships. If you can just focus on that, there's a time for everything else. And again, med students, I feel like even doctors in general, physicians in general, we know how to have fun. So the unwinding happens, but it can't be your priority. So just focus on what you need to do now. the rest falls into play. It falls into place very neatly if you have your priorities straight. Yeah. The first time I delivered a baby solo, that was a wow moment, like huge. Oh, wow. Not even just me and what I was able to do, but the female body and what it's capable of. And it's when you're the primary caregiver, when you're the receiver, and you're supposed to think about all the things. I'm trying to prevent a tear, make sure you're not bleeding, make sure baby's okay, comfortable in terms of positions and all of that, and seamlessly transition to you bonding with your baby and then taking care of the rest of the birthing process, because it doesn't end at the baby coming out. It's still a highlight for me, a huge win. Yeah. My first loss, that I say my loss because I took it personally. I wasn't the primary. I was a third year med student. What could I have done? That's the real, you have to think things through logically. I'm like, realistically speaking, I couldn't have changed anything, but I had to learn. It may not have been my mistake, but I learned from it, and I'm really glad I did, because dealing with it in such a way that it didn't scar me or traumatize me, but instead informed how I look after my patients now, turning the biggest L to another big win, I think. Yeah. Is first of all, very early, as early as you can, and as quickly as you can, learning who you are. And truly being honest about who you are, learning your strengths and your weaknesses, and then figuring out how to work with what you have, so that you're not sitting in a place of, I need to depend on someone, or I need to be like I'm lesser than because I don't have this. If it's a skill you don't have, learn it. Like, just let's keep it moving. So I'd say the first thing is plug into who you truly are, and then stay authentic. Your tribe will find you. The work that's for you will find you. You don't need to adapt. You don't need to kiss ass. You don't need to do any of that. And I'm speaking from both industries, because I sit in the middle of two very different spaces. That's my first one, is excellence will start with you being true to you, and then from inside working outwards. The second one I'd say is then, I mentioned picking up skills. So keep abreast with what's happening in your industry. Keep learning, keep teaching yourself, keep learning from others, and upskill when you need to. And then don't just keep upskilling, but become confident in your skill. Because again, we sell ourselves short a lot. In the space we work in this country, people tend to want to associate or affiliate with you once you're successful. So the climb up is very lonely. It feels like you're up against the whole world. But if you stay true to yourself and you stay focused on what you need to do to get to where you're be crazy. Be so focused on this ridiculous goal. Even if you fail, where you land is better than anyone else. So just focus in that direction. And then I'd say fail fast and fail forward. So figure it out very quickly. If something isn't working, it doesn't matter how much you put in. It doesn't matter how passionate you are. If it's not working, it's not working. Release. Learn from mistakes made. Learn, adapt, keep pivoting where you need to. And then use your learnings to keep growing. Just don't sit down in sadness and sorrow because it didn't work. But even if it failed, you're better than where you were before. And face new challenges with, even if you have fear, just keep pushing yourself. I think that's my big thing, where if you stay authentic to yourself, you're focused on the goal and the vision that you have, you're picking up on your mistakes as quickly as you can, and you keep learning and using what you've learned and adapting with the system, with the market, with the global state, because now we are a global village pretty much, you will achieve excellence in no time. My cheat code is that I know myself really well. Really, really well. Like, it took many years to get here, but I'm very clear about who I am as a person. So who I am for other people, I'm a supporter, I am a carer, I am a giver. But when I'm removing myself from that space, I then focus all those positives inwards. So then I'm not going to try to be something I'm not. I talk to people for a living every single day. But who I am as a person is an introvert. I want to be outside in nature, reading a book, listening to a podcast, swimming, running, hiking. So in my downtime, that's what I do. I focus on things that build me and recharge my battery. I also then prioritize relationships that are important to me, because you can't do things by yourself, and humans are social. The minute you isolate yourself, you start to die from a mental health point, and then physical as well. So it ends up being that I think because I know who I am, I'm able to plug into the things that feed my soul. But then I also recognize when I'm struggling and when I need help. Because again, it starts with knowing who you are. So I can tell when an incident at work imprints in me more than it should have. And when it's not a learning thing, it's a destructive thing. I reach out for professional help. There's no shortcut. There's no two ways about it. Therapy is necessary. Especially so when you are in healthcare, regardless. So forget even, it's necessary for everyone as a human. But in healthcare, you need to actually unplug, make sure that you get as much help as you can. There's always going to be something we learn from someone else, and there's a different perspective, and there's also coping mechanisms that you need to learn from a professional that will help you function a bit better. Yeah. It's a personal choice. So if you feel like celibacy is what will help you focus more, prioritize what you need to better, get to know people better, because a lot of people are celibate because they want to try and form relationships, especially in a world now where sex is like date one, and then we get to know each other in the aftermath much later. If you choose to be celibate, I think the thing that might work as a side effect is if you also detach yourself from people. So it kind of has to come as a balance, that you are finding other ways to engage with people, healthy ways, explore your creativity or focus on work and career, whatever it is, but just find a balance for yourself in that decision that you've made the same way. And then don't let people shame you, don't shame others, because people will make their own decisions, and not everybody has to do things the way you do things. Because I think my big issue with any decisions we tend to make around our sexual health is that regardless of which decision I make, I'll be shamed for it. If I choose to be celibate, I'll be shamed for it. If I choose to be sexually active, I'll be shamed for it. Like, how do we win? Where is the win? Guys, pick a struggle. So no physical, nothing physical will change. Let's start with that, because there are people who will say, oh, cobwebs, or no, just chill, it's fine. You're okay. You probably, for a lot of people, did not start having sex until much later in life, and you need to die. So you're fine. The thing is to also now think about yourself holistically and focus as well on mental health, so that it's not the only thing that's on your mind all the time. Yeah. I saw something on Instagram that I was like, that's me. I believe I can identify as polyamorous. I don't have a genre per se that I say I only listen to this kind of music. I'm very mood driven, so it depends on the mood I'm in. If I'm sad and I want to cry, that's what I'll listen to. If I'm happy and I want to keep the endorphins going, or if I'm not happy but I want to get happy. So music for me is like happy place, set the mood, experience and get to know culture and stay relevant pretty much, because there's a lot of messaging in lyrics as well. Right now, I'm definitely an old babe. So anything Gondwana, find me there. On Spotify, I can think of playlists that I've been listening to a lot. So Themba Radio, just because Made in Kenya, beautiful. The songs they keep throwing in there are just Nairobi, if you want to be in your feels, guys. I highly recommend So I'm not really, I wouldn't say I'm like artist, album kind of driven. It'll be more mood and what I'm looking for. Am I in a soulful mood? Am I in a more dance party mood? Am I in a more in my feel? So it really varies. So I'll have different playlists for different things, and then different artists stand out for me at different times. I also have heartbreak songs and artists, in fact albums, that I can't listen to casually. I'll be fine and then I will not, because they've been printed. So music is good fun for me, yeah. I'm a big reader. I think it's just medical training. It's one of those side effects if you're constantly reading. Right now I'm reading Confessions of a 40-something fuck up. I believe that's what it's called. And it's, the reason I picked it up is because I'm about to be yeah, imagine. And why I picked it up, I think the thing that resonates with me is someone telling their story as being completely against the grain. Like there's a typical societal pathway we're supposed to follow, especially women. We're told from day one, you're supposed to aspire to education, but focus on family and grow your family and nurture other people. And when you're not in any of that mainstream pathway, you feel quite lost. So it's a very funny, relatable read for me. Books that have been printed over the years, Quiet was a very good book for me because it's about the place of introverts in a loud world, and the world is getting louder and louder. And for those of us who don't want to shout or don't want to be omnipresent all the time, just empowering yourself to understand that it's okay to be yourself. It's okay to be an introvert. We need balance in this world. If we're all extroverted by personally, I'd be exhausted. Speaking for myself. I think a brand I would enjoy working with is Fenty or Savage, Riri's brands, because there's a side I want to start exploring and to come out of my shell kidogo. And that femme fatale is appealing to me right now. So that would be good fun. Please, dear Lord, please, Riri, if you ever see this. Yeah. Oh, I think we'd high five and I'd say, Kumbe, we're not crazy. And like, it worked out in the end. Like forging your own path. Industry-wise, I found myself, I was among the very, very first doctors who came online, and the shaming on both sides was crazy, because then doctors didn't understand why are you talking about our things in public? Why are you sharing information that we should be charging for? And then the public are like, when you're not busy enough, when you don't have patients you could be seeing, what's this about? So coming from that space and seemingly getting it right to the point where now we have more, we've created a space for younger doctors to be more present online, to diversify their portfolio a bit, to come out of their shells a bit more, to be more, in fact, it's sort of like giving permission to doctors to stop being the robot and allow yourself to be more diverse. I'd definitely want to see where that goes, because I feel like I'm only just starting to scratch the surface. So I'd want to see, I'd be keen to see how she does in 10 years.